by sharing my screen. And we'll start the slideshow. All right, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, hold it. All right, I'm just trying to set up my screen here so that I can see what I'm doing. All right. Just in case you don't know where Check Bay is, it's actually Chequamegon Bay, and here's a map. We're about 3 hours west of you, and yes, we do get a lot of snow. Nobody in the whole country, I think, gets as much snow as Holton, but we do get quite a bit. This last year we had just under 200 inches. Our area is kind of an unlikely spot for solar energy, way up in the northern tip of Wisconsin, just as your area would be. But we have proven that it does work. We have great summers, long days, lots of generation, maybe, yes, some reduced in the winter, but it is a great place for solar energy. And here's just a little bit closer view of our Chequamegon Bay. Bad River is over here to the right in New Dana. We work with Ashland up to Washburn, Bayfield, Madeline Island, Red Cliff, our other local tribe, is just north of us, over to Cornucopia and on to the shore headed toward Duluth. So that's kind of our, I guess you'd call it our service territory, or the communities that we work with. As Carol said, we are a volunteer nonprofit. And one of the most important features, I think, is that we don't charge anything. And that might sound kind of weird to focus on that, but if you're a salesman and you're selling something, there's always a little bit of skepticism because you know that that person is going to get financial advantage. Check Bay Renewables gets no financial advantage of any kind from any project that we work with or any project that we support. And somehow that kind of sets us free and builds trust, especially over time in the community. So I think that's an important point. The things that we do develop projects. You might say we're a solar development company. We engage directly, though, with our area communities, residents also, but specifically the municipalities and tribes. We have two main utilities around here: Bayfield Electric, which is a cooperative, and Excel Energy, which is an investment-owned utility. We work with them on a daily basis. We're certainly not against utilities. In fact, we feel that they're very, very important and necessary. And both of the utilities around here have great initiatives to transition to the clean energy future. Additional things that we do is make projects work. All these projects cost money, so we write grants, we do financial planning. How long is this going to take to pay for itself? So there is a bunch of financial planning involved. And then once a project gets complete, we don't stop there. We keep tabs on it. We track the energy that's being produced. We see if the things that we hoped for or promised are actually happening or not. So I think that's also an important point, that these things should last 40 or 50 years, and somebody needs to make sure that they're still performing. Here's a little history of our community. It pretty much started around 2009 when many of the communities in our area, including both tribes, all of the major cities like Ashland, Washburn, and Bayfield, many of the towns, Madeline Island, they all joined other communities throughout the state of Wisconsin called energy independent communities. And their goal was to have 25% of their energy use come from renewable energy by the year 2025. So that's right around the corner. The goal was set a long time ago, but right around the corner, we like to kind of see how things are doing. And we'll go through that as we go through the presentation a little bit. Not much happened until about 2016. And about 2016, the price of solar energy started coming down enough that it made it economically feasible. Back before that, the projects would take 20, 30 years to pay for itself. Well, starting in around approximately 2016, things became much cheaper, and the projects, the payback periods were much less. at that time period, we got involved with Bayfield Electric, which again is our local cooperative. The first solar garden had come online in the state of Wisconsin at that time, and we jumped right on that and presented to our co-op board and said, hey, we would like our co-op to have a solar garden too. And they were receptive to it. But they said, well, okay, but it's going to cost roughly $1 million to put in this 400 kW system. And we're not going to do it unless the money's there up front, because we're not going to risk the money. So we said, well, okay. And so we went out into the community, and we went to various coffee shops and libraries and had 7 or 8 different information sessions. And we basically raised $1 million through the community in about 60 days. And then the co-op said, okay, well, I guess we got to do this. So it took a year to put all that together. We actually started in 2015, and the commissioning on the solar garden was in 2016. A couple of years later, Excel also did a larger 1 megawatt solar community garden in our community. They had put 2 other ones, one in La Crosse and one in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And we petitioned very hard for Excel to put one up in the Northwoods, and they actually did. And they put that out to the community. You had to purchase shares. And we went to the community again. And on this one, we went to a lot of the municipalities. Bayfield County was the largest purchaser of the shares. They actually own about 20% of it. But we also went to the city of Ashland and the city of Bayfield, the city of Washburn, and a lot of these municipalities bought it out. And it took about a year, but we sold out that community garden too within the local community. And then about that same time, Check Bay Renewables was involved in the largest solar group buy in the state of Wisconsin. What a group buy is somebody, a nonprofit like Check Bay Renewables, puts out a request for proposal to hire a contractor. And the contractor, they give you a price to install all of these different projects instead of doing just one. You know, here we gave them the first year that was 100. Well, I think 2 years, it was 159 installations. So the contractor didn't have to go out and look for 159 projects. We just put those projects in their lap. And because of that, they gave us a cheaper price. And so that's the whole point of it, is to get one contractor to get a good price. And then we presented like the financials and did preliminary site assessments to save the contractor money. So in those 2 years, we put in over a megawatt. In 2018 and 2019, we put in over a megawatt of solar mostly at households. A few of the municipalities joined in, a couple of the small businesses, but most of it was residential solar at 4, 5, 6 kilowatts at a time. Then after that, the project was completed in 2020, but we did kind of a commercial group buy. We call it the Washburn Bayfield Community Solar Project, where we actually got a bunch of the municipalities to work together. It included Bayfield County, the city of Washburn, the city of Bayfield, the Pikes Bay Sanitary Sewer District, and the Washburn School District. And we got them all to put in solar at the same time at their facilities. So instead of having a contractor put in one project, they put in 6 projects. And instead of it being like 40 or 50 or 100 kW, it was 600 kW. So we got a cheaper price again, group buy, but on a commercial level. And that project was very successful. And it was interesting to try to get the various boards to actually work with one another. They're so used to being independent. We set up a system where they could retain their independence, but we just had them all do it at the same time. So we hired one contractor to do all those installations. Another project that we were working on, and this was with Bayfield County, they had purchased shares. Like I said, they were the largest purchaser of Excel's community garden, but they also had put a lot of solar through the group buys, and they put a lot of solar in through this Washburn Bayfield Community Solar Project. And we realized that with Excel Energy having a fairly high amount of renewable energy in their system already, that Bayfield County was close to being 100% carbon free of their electricity already. So we found a program to top that off. So in 2020, Bayfield County became the first county in the state of Wisconsin to achieve 100% carbon-free electricity. And that satisfied an executive order that our governor, Governor Evers, had put out the year before. but his goal was to have 100% carbon-free electricity throughout the state by 2050. Well, Bayfield County did it 30 years ahead of time, and so they got accommodation from the governor for doing that, and they were very, very proud of that. And then a year after that, in Bad River, we completed 3 microgrids with the largest battery storage system in the state of Wisconsin. A microgrid, for those of you that don't know, is simply a system of generation and batteries. The generation in this case was from solar energy with a large battery system, so that if the power goes out, you isolate from the grid and you power your facilities without the grid. It's called islanding. So these 3 microgrids, it was 3 different buildings, their wastewater treatment plant, their health clinic, and their administration building. When the power goes out, these 3 buildings will operate independently. And with the large battery system, in the summertime, at least, these 3 microgrids will operate for weeks, if not months at a time, without any input from the grid. They also incorporated with them is backup generation. Some of them are diesel generators, some of them are natural gas generators. But the batteries make the generators, the backup generators, much more efficient. Normally, if you don't have batteries, a generator will just kick on and run 24/7 as long as the power's out. But in the case with the batteries, the generator only kicks on when the batteries run low on charge, and then the generator just runs long enough to fill the batteries up, and then they shut off again. And if there's enough solar, the generators don't run at all. So in that setup with those 3 parts, the solar, the battery, and the generators, Bad River can run their buildings for a good chunk of the summer without anything. And then in the winter, when there's much reduced solar, they run for about a week or so without any power. So that's a little bit of a history of what we've been doing for the last 5 or 6 years. And here's just I'm going to run through these kind of quickly, but here's some of the awards that we got for doing the projects that I just mentioned. This one here is for the largest group buys in the state of Wisconsin. This one is for the Washburn Bayfield project that I talked about, where we included the municipalities and the school district. We got an award for that one. Let's see, this is the governor's commendation for Bayfield County reaching 100% carbon-free electricity. And this is a little graph on how Bayfield County achieved that. The blue part up here is the solar that's generated on site. The orange part is the solar that's generated by the county buying shares in the community solar garden, which is next door. The gray is the carbon that free energy that's already in Xcel Energy's mix. And Xcel Energy is one of the higher in the country with carbon-free electricity because they have a nuclear plant, but also because they have a lot of wind and some solar too. And then this yellow is another program that Xcel has where you basically buy carbon credits and offset, and that money goes to additional renewable energy projects. And the little bitty blue there at the top is other programs from other utilities, Bayfield Electric specifically. So that's how they achieved 100% carbon-free electricity. And here's just a couple pictures of what a large battery system looks like. The battery up there at the top is at Bad River's wastewater treatment plant. They have over 1 megawatt hour of battery storage there. It's 1,000 kilowatt hours. And here's another award we got for that Bad River project in 2022. So what's the point of all of this so far? I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to show you, oh, Check Bay Renewables is great. The point is that we did this with no budget. We basically, no money is required to do this. We did this with virtually no staff. This is basically myself. I get support from my wife. We do have a board, so we're a real nonprofit. The board supports me, but basically this is me going out there in the community and doing the legwork. And the final point there is that a lot can be accomplished if you have time and you have the passion. And I'm retired, so I have the time and I obviously have the passion. So that's the main point of this whole presentation, is that you can do a lot if you want to get it done. We have 3 current projects that are under construction right now. And each one that we built demonstrates some new technology. We work on past successes, and the field is changing rapidly. So we try to keep up with new changes and incorporate them in our projects. The first one here at Northern Lights is a 120 kW system, but the new technology is it uses bifacial panels. They've been out for only a few years now, but bifacial means that they collect light not only from the top where the sun shines on them, but they also collect light from the bottom, from reflected light, and it works especially well in the snow. You get a lot of reflected light off the snow. It bounces up on the backside of the panels, and the backside actually generates electricity just like the front side. We have never, except for Michigan Tech has documented a little bit of increased efficiency from these panels, but we have no documentation in our area of how much more efficient these panels will be. So this will be the first application we're going to put on data loggers into this system. And we've got a similar system a couple blocks down the way at the Bayfield County Jail, so we can compare the two installations and see which one is more efficient. We are anticipating somewhere around 10 to 20% efficiency increase because of the bifacial panels. The second project that we're working on, which is pretty exciting, is the Bayfield County's jail and courthouse. We're turning both of those buildings, which right now they're on separate meters. We're going to combine them into one master meter and turn them into a microgrid. That project is under construction right now. They're actually last week installed all the Xcel Energy installed all their power on the outside of the building, and this week the building is transitioning over to the new feeds, and they're getting in a new transformer and changing power at the courthouse. So it's kind of a whole revamp of the electrical system. They already had the solar in place, but we're adding the battery, which just got delivered last week. And the part of this that is new technology, we're going to have what we call real-time interface to the controller of the microgrid. It's basically a commercial or an industrial computer, and we're going to have access to that through the cloud. And when I say we have access, there's a company, they're based out of Colorado actually, that's going to run the microgrid from the cloud from Colorado through a computer algorithm that tries to predict the future. And by that, I mean, what's the building load going to be in an hour? What's the weather look like tomorrow or in the next hour or two? When we generate electricity from the solar, where should that electricity go? Should it go to the batteries? Should it go to the building? Should it go back to the grid? What's the price of the market for electricity right now? And the algorithm determines where the electricity goes in real time. As far as I know, this is the only project, certainly in the Midwest, maybe the country, that's at this level of sophistication. So this is very exciting for us to get up and running, and it should be up and running. We're waiting on one part. We've had some supply chain issues, but it should be up and running by September. The last one there is another exciting project, Bayfield County Highway Garage. We are also going to interface with that one, but we're going to put in, besides the microgrid components with the battery and stuff, we're going to put in some EV charging. And EV charging, I call it smart EV charging because, again, we're going to interface with it, and we're going to try to control the electric bills so that there's not a lot of high demand when electricity is expensive or when the grid is experiencing high demand, and charge mostly at night when the grid has lower prices and lower demand. So smart charging. And then the projects that we have in the works, these have not been funded yet, but we are working on these 4 projects. We're working with both tribes, Red Cliff and Bad River. At Red Cliff, we're more in the planning stages, trying to get some microgrids off the ground there. Bad River, we're taking what we've learned from their 3 microgrids, and we're talking about taking the entire tribe and turning it into what we call a mini grid. The grid is the real grid. The electric grid is macro, everything. A microgrid is very small, maybe 1 or 2 buildings. A mini grid is the entire community of Bad River. At that particular project, we have got a engineering study funded, and then we've applied for the implementation grant, which would be 5 megawatts of solar and 4 megawatt hours of battery storage. And then on the right side there, Bayfield County, we have just applied for 2 different grants, a DOT CFI grant, and also a DOE ERA grant. Both of these are large grants, and I'm going to get into some of the funding in just a minute. But basically, the Bayfield County grant would, the DOT grant would fund EV charging infrastructure throughout the county. It's about a $3 million project, and the DOE ERA grant is for putting microgrids in all the county highway garages, also in Red Cliff and some of the Bayfield towns. It's about a $10 million project. So I'm going to talk briefly about some of the new funding that's coming down to fund some of this work that we're doing. I do really believe that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity, so we really need to pay attention to this, do it right. And I'm not going to get into these particular grants in depth. You have access to this slideshow. All the green letters here are links. You can click on them and research any of these that you think is applicable to your community. But I wanted to focus first on the Department of Energy and the Department of Transportation, because these are the 2 grants that we're working on right now, this ERA grant and this DOT CFI grant. The CFI is the one that funds infrastructure. We had picked out 11 sites in Bayfield County to put in large DC fast chargers. These fast chargers, if the car will take it, will charge a car in 15 minutes. So this is, if this gets done, it would set Bayfield County up for the next decade or so. This particular grant is due May 30th. We have it completed. We're just waiting for to submit it in, and then we'll find out this fall whether this one gets funded or not. This DOE grant is an interesting grant because the state of Wisconsin actually called us, and the state of us being Bayfield County, and they are the applicant to the Department of Energy, and the $10 million that we have proposed in the project would all go to projects within Bayfield County. And the reason why it ended up in Bayfield County is the state called around all the rural communities. It's a grant specifically for rural communities, so the big cities couldn't apply. So the state called around the rural communities, and there wasn't any rural communities that had their ducks in a row, that had projects ready that could do this. The minimum grant request is $5 million. And as I said, this is a $10 million project. We're requesting $8 million in grant funding, and then there's a $2 million match. Well, when the state called us, we said, well, sure, we got projects. We can put this together. We had a couple of them that were already in the works. So I guess we're the only ones that they found that were ready to go. So we'll see how that one goes. We'll know this fall. Additional opportunities, and this is probably one of the most important ones, maybe for the country in general, is the tax credits. They were down to 26% before the IRA was passed, and they were set to expire in a lot of cases. Well, they extended them into 2032 and raised them back up to 30%. But there's another thing here. The second bullet point is direct pay is a very important one for nonprofits and municipalities, because before tax credits only applied if you owed taxes. Well, now a municipality or a nonprofit who does not pay taxes can get the same as a 30% tax credit. And all you do is you fill out an IRS form and you get a check in the mail. It's not a competition. It's not a grant. It's just an incentive that pays for 30%. So all projects that municipalities and nonprofits do, 30% of it is automatically paid for through this direct pay. They extended the definition so that electric vehicle infrastructure is also covered in this. And there's a link to a fact sheet about the tax credits, the investment tax credit, they call it. And I won't go into this too much, but there are other departments. The IRA and the BIL were both funded, and the money was split into the various departments through the administration. And so the Department of Agriculture has got some good ones. This REAP grant is great for any kind of rural business. And by rural, I think the definition is anything under 50,000 people. So all of our small cities are considered rural. And the Department of Energy, I have not been involved in any Department of Energy projects, but there are many out there. because of the fact that they have water projects and we live around water, both our communities, there could be something there too that we could apply. And the last ones here, both the tribes, our local tribes, are very involved with EPA. There's grant opportunities to not only reduce carbon, but also to build capacity. And what I mean by that is human capacity. It takes people to run these projects, to develop these projects, to administer them, to monitor them after they're constructed. And the tribes are very lacking on having enough capacity, human capacity to do that. And so some of these grants can help with that, as well as fund the projects. And then I know you're not in the state of Wisconsin, but the state of Wisconsin, each state has got an office of energy of some type. These are listed what Wisconsin offers. And down in the state of Wisconsin, it's called the EGLE, the Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. That's your office of energy. And I suggest you check that link out and go to your state office and find out what kind of energy programs you have in Wisconsin. So bringing this back down to more of a personal level, how can you be involved in this? If you don't have a Check Bay Renewables, maybe you should start one or find it out if you do have one. Support it if there is a nonprofit in your area that does the type of things that we do. The state of Wisconsin has a statewide nonprofit called Renew Wisconsin. Maybe Michigan does too. Get a hold of those type of organizations and see how you can be a part of it. Also get involved with your local government. We have been very involved with Bayfield County, but also the cities, the school districts, and the tribes to develop projects within these community buildings. And on a more personal level, install solar at your home, buy an electric car, do anything that you can to reduce your personal carbon footprint. And then the last bullet point there, maybe you have some community projects that are going on to disadvantaged communities or nonprofits. I'll show you some examples of what we have on here that maybe you could financially support. And here's the example of what I just talked about as far as disadvantaged nonprofits or communities. This first one here is our food pantry, our local food pantry in Ashland. They obviously don't have any money. They live on donations. And so a solar developer had some extra panels. When a solar developer has a project, usually they're great big projects, and they buy containers of solar modules. And when the project's over, maybe they have 20 or 30 panels left over. It's kind of an odd lot. And for the next project, they just buy a new brand or a new container or whatever. So they have extra parts, and they called us up and said, do you know of a nonprofit that would take these parts? So we said, sure. So we accepted the donation and found the brick here. And then we went out to the community and asked to fund the rest of it. I mean, the panels themselves, even though they're free, only represent about 20, 30, or less than that, 15 to 20% of the cost of the project. There's labor, there's inverters, there's other things, other parts. So we asked the community to fund some help, and we raised $13,000. And then we found a local installer that was just getting into the business, and they installed it at their cost to help reduce cost too. So we built this project for the food pantry at no cost to the food pantry. Their electric bills are cut drastically so that they can save money and take that money and use it for their mission, which is food, not paying electric bills. And here's another example. This is right across the street, the New Day Advocacy Center. We did this project at the same time. We raised $10,500 for the community. The panels were free. The installer built it at cost. And so this also we provided to the New Day shelter for no cost to them. Here's another example of a project. This is the Ashland Area Development Corporation. They wrote a grant from an outfit in Madison to get half the panels. We found a different solar developer to donate another half of the panels, 120 kW system. So all the panels were free. The balance of the system cost $70,000. And this organization, of course, they didn't have any money either. So we found a way that we could borrow the money from the state at a low interest rate, but the applicant for the loan had to be the city of Ashland. The Ashland Area Development Corporation was not eligible to borrow the money, but the city of Ashland was. So we talked the city of Ashland into borrowing the money and basically using the city of Ashland as a conduit to transfer the money over to the Ashland Area Development Corporation. So this is just some of the creative financing ways that we try to create a project. And the last bullet point there was cash flow positive from day one. What I mean by that is that yes, they had to pay off that loan, but the savings on the electric bills were more than paying off the loan. So the loan, I think, was a 10-year loan. Every month they made a little bit more electricity savings than the loan payment, but after 10 years, then they really start saving a lot of money because the loan's paid off. And I think this is the last example. This is our local nursing home. We got 62% of this project funded. Again, it's a large one, 120 kW of solar with bifacial panels. With 62% of it funded through various grants, we raised $26,000 through the community. The payback period on this project is only 4.5 years. So after the electricity savings again will pay back what the nursing home had to put up in 4.5 years, and after that, then their electric bill is going to be reduced by about $15,000 a year, which is money that they're not sending to their utility, that they're sending into patient care. So I'm going to stop there. There is our website address and also an email to Check Bay Renewables, and I put my personal email in the chat, and I also put a link in the chat to this slideshow. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we can open it up for questions.